The number of candidates who are following Scott Walker's lead by dropping out at his urging, 0. Most of these people are going to stay in the race as long as they can and get all the attention. So why did the governor of Wisconsin drop out? Because he has a day job and he had tumbled in the polls. He was less than 1%. He's having trouble raising money. He had to worry that this could hurt his standing back home. This is a fascinating rise and fall fueled by the media. In fact, the media completely misjudged Scott Walker's chances early on in a way that really hurt him. It was last January in Iowa. Scott Walker gave a pretty punchy speech. It was well received. The media lavished all this praise on him. He went up in the polls. We are slaves to polls. And then suddenly Scott Walker was a front runner, one of the front runners, and yet he wasn't quite ready for the prime time spotlight. Like many governors, he didn't know that much about foreign policy. He started complaining about gotcha questions when he'd be asked, like, what's your stance on evolution? Not that hard to tackle. And even if they are gotcha questions, presidential candidates have to be able to handle them. That's part of the test of running for president. So suddenly he's up in the polls. He's the favorite to win Iowa. He's complaining about gotcha questions. Then he stopped talking to the press. Walker took a couple of overseas trips and wouldn't talk to reporters on those. And when he reemerged and started talking to the press again, he kept making mistakes. Things like, I guess it was in a speech that he compared battling ISIS to taking on the public employee unions in Wisconsin. And then he kept changing his mind on different issues, most notably, the 14th Amendment. Donald Trump had started talking about repealing what's known as birthright citizenship. 7 days, Scott Walker took 3 different positions on birthright citizenship. That's not a mark of a confident candidate, of a sure-footed candidate. And look, competent governor, I've met him, nice guy. He is not exactly bursting with charisma in a year when the tone is being set, most notably by Donald Trump. Now, I don't buy into the notion that Donald Trump, by sucking up all the oxygen, defeated Scott Walker in this race. Scott Walker defeated Scott Walker because he couldn't find his footing. He had trouble answering press questions. And after a while, he had trouble deciding what he stood for. He was so anxious to appear tough on illegal immigration, just like Trump, that he actually mused out loud during an interview about, well, maybe we should build a wall along the Canadian border. It was things like that that really undercut Walker's standing. And the 2 debates, the Fox debate, the CNN debate, lackluster would be putting it politely. He was bland, he didn't stand out, wasn't clear what his message was. So in a way, by pumping him up early, the media did a disservice to Scott Walker because he could have made these mistakes in a lower pressure environment. But once we all said, well, he's one of the 2 or 3 people who could win the Republican nomination, he had to step up. And it's tough. It's tough for senators and governors and ex-governors who haven't hit this kind of major league pitching from the national press to make that transition. Scott Walker failed to make the transition. He is out. I think some other candidates might eventually be following him out. We'd probably be down to 1 debate, not just an undercard debate. But it's a kind of a classic lesson in how not to deal with the media. You've got to know what you think, and you've got to be able to take those questions if you want to survive the rigors of a presidential campaign.